Hello there, nerds. I'm Dr. Jordan, and
I'm a doctor.
Did I leave the Zoom on?
I'm Dr. Jeremy from Hard Drive Hospital, and my specialty is video game fan rage.
That is not a real...
There's a crisis going on, and the gamers, they're upset.
Okay, well, I was going to...
I'm using this microscope to find the flaws in this game's mechanics to see what got everyone so worked up in the first place.
Are you actually at a hospital?
It's too small. Can't find it.
I don't understand.
Dr. Boss said you needed help on a case. I think it was like some sort of Dr. House thing.
Well, we were going to do another episode of Your Brain on Crack, the show where I usually talk about movies.
Despite YouTube's gaming channels historically doing much better than movie channels.
I like to think of it as the only show on crack that chooses its topics deliberately.
I'm glad you finally sold out. Why don't you just show me what you have already?
Okay, well, I guess I could diagnose. Right, well, nobody can play every single video game in existence. Believe me, I've played like 7 Call of Duties. But maybe if game designers played other developers' games more often, they'd encounter some mechanics they could steal for themselves, and for me, and for us. Like all remotely playable old Xbox games, Red Faction Guerilla was re-released and remastered. Nice joke. For those that don't remember, Red Faction Guerilla is the explodiest video game ever created. Every single in-game structure is fully, truly destructible. Of course, when things aren't actively on fire, there's basically no joy to be had as the enemy AI is moronic and the shooting sections are less exciting than running through your local grocery store making pew-pew sounds at the elderly. I don't need a remaster of this game. I need other games to steal what was so special about it.
Dan said they take everything. For me, they already have.
Sure, Mercenaries and a handful of Battlefields tout their powerful destruction engines, but in Mercenaries, dropping enough bombs on a building eventually sparks a pre-scripted, "Oh, I'm totally exploding now" animation, wherein plumes of smoke obscure the game, swapping out the freestanding building graphic for like a burned out husk of a Wendy's graphic. It's nothing more than a glorified cutscene.
I'm used to people trying to kill me, but this is something personal.
But in Red Faction, buildings are actively destroyed brick by beautiful brick in a way that makes sense. Players are provided an assortment of weapons, including a big-ass hammer, and tasked with flattening every government building on Mars. The hook is that buildings collapse when they're structurally unsound, not just when their health points are fully depleted or whatever. Smashing out a load-bearing wall causes the public library to realistically crumble under the strain, and it'll take out any other nearby buildings on its way down. It's like the world's sexiest, most dangerous game of dominoes. And that was like a decade and an entire console generation ago, and I'm still waiting for something similar. Hell, even the sequel, Red Faction Armageddon, forgot what made the first game great by removing the wide open setting and unlimited destruction and moving the action underground, where you mostly just smash pipes. Unsurprisingly, that decision killed the series, the publisher, and my zest for lovemaking.
They'll be back.
Not for a long time.
If a sweaty Alex Jones lurched into your living room and puked up 3 cans of alphabet soup, it'd probably spell something similar to Psi-Ops, the Mindgate Conspiracy. And honestly, that projectile vomiting would probably be more enticing than most of the actual game, as it's a pretty typical bald dude has special powers and a gun. Except it also lets you transform nearly every inanimate object into a friggin' surfboard. Yeah, what separates Psi-Ops from other superhero games with telekinesis-type powers is the ability to climb on top of objects prior to chucking them at some dude's head and then surfing them like Bodhi catching that one final wave.
Do something, brah!
Except your board is a barrel of gasoline and the wave is 15 remarkably flammable security guards.
Do you like playing with fire?
Even more shockingly, the mechanics are practically effortless. After a couple of tries, flying around on a table and chain gunning bad guys into pace is about as intuitive as landing a basic grind in Tony Hawk. Why haven't Star Wars games stolen this idea? Think how badass Force Unleashed or Jedi Knight would be with mid-air lightsaber battles between Sith surfing on bacta containers or dead stormtroopers. Tell me that's not more exciting than clumsily slashing your way through foot soldiers in Battlefront 2, hoping to eventually play as Boba Fett for like 6 seconds.
There must be more.
Forget games for a second, what about the Star Wars movies? If Taika Waititi's movie doesn't feature Mace Windu riding a floating Chewbacca into battle, then I will gladly pony up $200 million of my own for a fan remake.
Alright, wait, hold on. I can do one better than that.
Okay, like what?
Remember how in Halo 2, if you got a gun, you could just start like shooting the hell out of people, like that was so sick, man. That should be in every video game.
Almost every game already has guns.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Video Game Opinions Police Officer. Please don't do a brutality on me.
What?
Mortal Kombat.
I feel like
Let Kirby have a gun. He wants one.
that is a terrible idea.
You know what? How about we just let the comments decide?
What comments, man? This is a freaking hospital.
Comment below if you think that Kirby should have a gun, or if you agree with Jordan because you're a dumb piece of shit idiot.
Okay, I'm gonna move on. One of my biggest gripes with modern games is the same gripe I have with my personal life. Nobody lets me build a sprawling criminal empire!
Not personal, Sonny.
A couple of Grand Theft Auto games and Scarface, The World's Yours flirt with crime simulator elements, but actually acquiring new drug fronts never feels right. Building your empire either means shooting everybody and declaring yourself head criminal, or performing fetch quests until local shopkeepers agree to pay you. Something about picking up a dude's mail doesn't exactly scream Breaking Bad. The only game that ever came close for me is the much maligned Godfather II, and now don't get me wrong, most of the time it's less fun than playing Donkey Kong Jungle Beat with Don Corleone's flappy jowls, but the extorting businesses and running rackets elements are freaking fantastic. Taking over a business requires selling an owner on how much they need your protection, specifically protection from you smacking the shit out of them. When intimidating an owner, a gauge comes up showing just how close they are to giving in. The more you threaten, the more you'll earn, and each owner has special weaknesses that unlock more cash. Maybe they can't take a punch, or maybe they don't want you smashing their product, or maybe they just want somebody to talk to about the stresses of shoemaking. Find out what makes them piss their pants and you're rolling in it, babe. Well, you're rolling in the money, not the piss. I mean, unless you want to, and then you have the money to do that.
The point I'm making is this, that now we have what we have always needed.
But if you push it too far, they'll get desperate, whip out a shotgun, and try to paint their office with your brains. And if you kill them, you can't take over the business because there's nobody to run it. It's not like I'm gonna learn how to sell shoes. As your empire grows, you can hire foot soldiers to fend off attacks from rival gangs and go on other missions, and by the end of the game, you do truly feel like the crime king of Miami. Seriously, why isn't this more integrated into other crime games? The Mafia games are primarily story-driven, and Grand Theft Auto spent most of its development creating an accurate yoga simulator. Perfect Dark for the N64 was built off an upgraded GoldenEye engine, but they upped the ante by adding 2 boobs,
Sick.
and way more aliens. And while the majority of the game's modes boiled down to shooting AI-controlled bots or your friends in the face until they're dead, it did have one extra magical game type that's been rarely revisited. I'm talking about Counter-Operative mode. In Counter-Operative mode, one player controls Agent Dark as she tromps through the single-player campaign, but everybody else controls low-level grunt soldiers. As a normal bad guy with low health and mediocre weapons and a questionable choice of employment, it doesn't take much to get blown away by the overpowered hero, but as soon as you're killed, you're immediately transferred to the body of another low-level goon, and you're collectively controlling the bad guys, just one at a time. And on the surface, this might sound kind of lame, considering that unless you're the main character, you're essentially cannon fodder, and like my grandma always used to say, I wasn't raised to play video games like no bitch. But in practice, it's a freaking blast.
No one could have predicted that.
The game becomes much more random and difficult for the main player since the enemies aren't any stronger, but as long as you're not playing with your tween cousin who huffs Gorilla Glue, they're much smarter. Meanwhile, the other player gets to be the grunt who thwarts the hero's grand quest. And it's not just the typical PvP multiplayer in an arena, it's still the story of the campaign with all of the twists and turns and set pieces. Perfect Dark's mode only worked with 2 players, but imagine this concept applied to next-gen hardware and online play. Think about playing a campaign in a game like Call of Duty, knowing that every single terrorist you dismember is actually some 11-year-old kid from Canada.
Are they all expendable?
This means that every single playthrough of that campaign is unique, and if you come back and play it a year later, you'll get a totally different experience as terrorist player tactics will have advanced. You'd actually have an ultra-hard mode for once that doesn't just mean that enemies are able to take 15 shotgun blasts to the face, but that they're actually smarter.
So those are your magical fixes for video games? Sell Gamer Boy P, crash into a grocery store, and pretend to like surfing?
I mean, that feels like an oversimplification.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe we shouldn't try to fix video games. Maybe video games and other lesser art forms are just extensions of the people who create them. What they've made is who they are, flaws included. Why is this channel, hell, our entire culture so obsessed with uncovering tiny mistakes, counting them in little lists, and serving them up to be consumed as content? Shouldn't we celebrate what a miracle it is that video games exist at all? It's as miraculous as life itself. If we say, oh, this video game is broken or this video game is stupid, what we're really saying is that he is broken and she is stupid. When we spend our lives talking about how Fallout is glitchy, what we're really trying to do is deflect from the fact that our souls are glitchy, that our souls have big head mode. And whatever joy we get from pointing out the flaws in video games, what we're really doing is pointing out the flaws in people. And that's killing us.
Wow, that's actually kind of poignant.
Also, come on, just give Kirby a gun already.
His hands are too small. They're little freaking nubs.
Maybe he can like absorb a gun, and then he's just like a big gun. He's holding two other little guns, and he's got gun hands, and then his whole thing is like four. I think 4 guns is how many I counted.
I don't think you're a real doctor.
All right, I think my work here is done.
So we're asking politicians to make gamers a protected class so we can end all discrimination.
Your mother and I are getting a divorce. What?
Chainsaws don't really work like that. Necks are just too thick.
When you get all the way down, if we really look at ourselves when we point out that Pathfinder's hitbox, what is isn't Pathfinder a role-playing game? Right? Isn't Pathfinder D&D? Pathfinder. It's King. Yeah, dude, these are role-playing games. Alright, maybe I'm an idiot, but I'm gonna change it. Hitbox. I'm gonna say, oh, is Pathfinder a character? Sorry, I'm being stupid. Hitbox. Pathfinder hitbox. Oh, I see. Okay, it's Apex Legends. I'm stupid.